Alrighty, guys. Well, anybody hear of this small indie writer, hasn't really done a whole lot in the industry, doesn't, have a lot of acclaim to his name or anything like that. This guy named AARON SORKIN. Now, AARON SORKIN, again, I'm being facetious, but for those of you who don't know who AARON SORKIN is, he is, he is one of the greatest writers in Hollywood. I think that is clear. He created and wrote The West Wing, one of my favorite shows of all time, but he's done so many other amazing things as well. One of my favorite films, most underrated films, honestly, of the 2010s was Steve Jobs that he wrote, I believe. Did he direct that? I think David, can't be David Fincher, but, somebody famous did a great job directing that. I just can't remember. But he wrote Steve Jobs, and of course, related to Steve Jobs and tech genius biopics, he also wrote The Social Network. And I think The Social Network was, if not mistaken, other than The West Wing, but in terms of movies, because after that, in the 2010s and early 2020s, he's been really directing some high-profile movies himself. So not just writing, but directing them, and also continuing to write some really great features. I also watched Molly's Game a couple years ago, which was really good. I think he directed that. So he is, really one of the greatest writing minds in Hollywood. And The Social Network, like I said, I think was one of the biggest films that really put him on the map in terms of movies, in terms of writing movies. And so, Social Network, right? It's about Facebook. It's about Mark Zuckerberg, played by Jesse Eisenberg, and his early days creating Facebook and what that turned into, Armie Hammer, and all of that wrapped up in that film. And so then years go by, right? It's been a long time since The Social Network came out. And, there have been rumors and rumblings for a while of, are they going to do a Social Network 2? I mean, Mark Zuckerberg is still very young. It has to be said that even when the first Social Network movie came out, he was in his early 30s, late 20s, and now I think he's in his 40s, but he's still very young, relatively speaking. And, it's always weird making biopics about people, real people, especially biopics that are maybe not discussing the more glamorous sides of their lives all the time, which The Social Network definitely did, kind of expose some of the more negative qualities about Mark Zuckerberg. And so, just the idea of doing a part 2, especially with how Facebook has really evolved and come into the national spotlight in, I would wager, mostly a negative way over the last 5 or 10 years, is interesting. And they have now just confirmed that AARON SORKIN is not only going to write, but he's going to direct The Social Network Part 2. This is going to be, this film is going to be based on a new book by Jeff Horowitz, and I say new, it's 2021, but still relatively new, called The Facebook Files. And, it's interesting, right? Because I haven't read the book, obviously. I probably will just wait till The Social Network Part 2 comes out. But again, like I've said before, there's so much that's happened with Facebook over the last 5 or 10 years. And this channel is not here to get into politics. I acknowledge, by the way, there are very real world events going on, and I don't ignore that just because I want to be ignorant. I don't ignore those because I don't care about these kinds of things. I think that there are very real things happening on in the world that we need to pay attention to. That being said, this channel is not a channel for politics and anything like that. So, all those things just as caveats before we discuss The Social Network Part 2, because it's a film about real world events. But everything that happened with Facebook in the 2016 election, everything that's gone on with misinformation about Facebook, going forward with that, and how Zuckerberg has changed and evolved, especially in relation to our current president as well. I think I don't know what the book's about, by the way. I'm assuming it's about all those kinds of things and the the alleged hacking schemes and things like that Russia was doing with Facebook in the election, the past couple elections. And I mean, there's just so much to dig into. Again, not to be political, just from a real world perspective. And I'm personally fascinated by what a Social Network Part 2 could do. Like, for example, I think there's an example of if he did, Steve Jobs 2 coming out next year, I'd be like, I guess. I mean, there's still plenty to explore after the, was it the iPhone launch that they ended that movie on? There's still more to explore before his death, sure, but was that, is that really the richest place of content or story? I don't know. But Facebook, I mean, Mark Zuckerberg, as a figure in modern history and modern times, I think is so interesting. So I personally, upon hearing this news, was actually quite excited about this. Not in the sense of, I would love to see this, but just more of, wow, this is going to be such an interesting movie. And I can't wait to see how Sorkin handles it, how he deals with it, and what he comes up with. So I think this is a very interesting thing, and it's something to file away for later. Guys, what do you think about the idea of a Social Network Part 2? I personally am intrigued, but let me know what you guys think in the comments down below.